My final guest, when he was asked to play the part of Superman, his father said, "Terrific," he said. "I've always wanted to see you in George Bernard Shaw." We're delighted to welcome the real thing, Christopher Reeve. So we assume that your family weren't great readers of the pulp comics.
No, or if they were, they certainly kept very quiet about it. It was a strange kind of thing. I grew up in a family which had kind of academic pretensions, and to be caught reading a comic book was just grounds for expulsion, I think.
Was that hard for you? Was it? Do you remember feeling a bit underprivileged as a child?
No, we got quite clever because we went around the corner to the Forbes house, and they had not only comic books but a television as well. So you could watch Zorro, Bat Masterson, Sky King, Superman, and read comics all at the same time.
Children do grow up despite their parents, don't they?
Mm.
What about your father, though? Did he really think it was Man and Superman by George Bernard Shaw?
For a moment. He said, "Oh, that's very good. Who's going to play Anne?" And he was thinking I was going to play Jack Tanner in Man and Superman. But no, that was just at a point in time when I was very, very set on a career in the theater. And I got into films sort of by mistake. I wasn't planning to go there. And all of a sudden, I found myself going to London screen testing for Superman, and I thought, well, I'll have a nice weekend, and I'll go to Fortnum and Mason's, and I'll get marmalade for everybody that I'm working with back home in the States at the Circle Repertory Company. I guess I was something of a snob about it.
Do you regret now having taken on the Superman thing?
No.
Because it's going to be hard to dislodge, isn't it?
It is, but again, see, it's a question of perspective, is that I can just be as obtuse and blindly ignorant of the whole thing as I choose to be. Having said that, though, you see, it opened doors in my career. It made all kinds of things possible. In a way, if you have a big success, it's fun to not have to live up to it. I mean, I don't deliberately go out to create disasters, but I'm willing to have there be disasters because something better is going to come out of it. So every now and again, you hit one, you make a terrible mistake, and I'm on this time. I'm doing the Aspern Papers in the West End with Vanessa Redgrave, and with whom I did a film last summer, and with Dame Wendy Hiller, and it's at the Haymarket, and I'm in this play that I know is right, and we're on a roll with this. You can feel sometimes when it's working.
You're working with Vanessa Redgrave. You worked with her before on the Bostonians.
Right.
She has an image of being a political firebrand. Obviously, I wouldn't expect you to tell me that you can't get on with her and you work, but is she difficult to work with?
No, she's...
You may admit it here because there's nobody watching.
Vanessa Redgrave is one of the most beautiful people, and she's one of the best actresses in the English language. And she is so warm and giving, it's unbelievable. We have a family going in that play, and the work is coming out of a kind of group. I mean, this play hasn't been done in the West End for 23 years. It's a different time, it's a different theater-going age, and the whole thing is sort of being rediscovered, and Vanessa is the organizing mind and the generating presence behind the whole thing.
During your early theater, I mean, you did a lot of theater at the beginning before the film thing all took over. Did you play English parts at all?
Yes, in summer stock. I mean, I did things like...
You would look English to the American audience rather than American.
You think so?
You would have a British face.
Maybe. I did parts like, I've been accused of being German sometimes, or I don't know.
And the mustache makes you a little bit German.
I'm trying hard. I have to have it in by February 15th. I'm pulling at it desperately. No, I played parts like Victor in Private Lives, you know, in summer stock. You know, you
like playing coward.
Playing coward. He's very hard to do. You've got to be so specific. Every period, every semicolon has got to be exactly spot on.
And during your early days, when you were here doing a thesis on the British theatre, you actually taught British actors how to talk American.
Yeah, well, I worked backstage at the Old Vic when they're doing a production of The Front Page, working with this sort of officers, beggars, townspeople, et cetera, in this production of The Front Page. And it's funny, because when Americans do English and English do American, we both go over the top. You know, sort of when Americans do English, they come out like some very second-rate RAF night fighter pilot. Sort of, there I was, Evie Bremerhaven, Jerry's on the clock, nothing on, you know, and all this sort of, number one, what do you plan to do after the war? And all this sort of thing. And we sort of choke it all up in America, and when British do American, it's like, I want a glass of water, you know? It's like everybody comes from Brooklyn, and the truth is somewhere in between. Actually, Tracy Ullman, she's done one of the best American accents I've heard, and she came on tonight.
Talented girl with accents. Did you find British actors hard to teach American to?
No. And that particular year, they were doing a production of Long Day's Journey into Night. Laurence Olivier and Dennis Quilley, Ron Pickup, and the whole atmosphere at the National. This was, I think, the last season at the Old Vic. There was very, very talented people there.
You taught Laurence Olivier how to speak?
Not a bit of it. No. I was working with the extras. No.
Do you ever want to play the Laurence Olivier roles yourself?
No, but I think that the kind of recklessness that he had about his image and his career is something to aspire to. I think the people who really want to serve the art in themselves instead of themselves in the art are the kind of people who say, I don't care if this takes me to Chichester or the West End or Hollywood or Yugoslavia or Timbuktu. It's, I'm going to do something that comes from inside. I'm not going to do it for the bucks. And growth must come out of that.
But sometimes I think Laurence Olivier does do things for the bucks.
That's lately. I think he did all these things and then he realized that he hadn't anything in the bank. You know? At some point he said, right, art is expensive, and I guess I'd better do the Betsy to pay for it, you know?
What are you going to do when the money runs out?
I wasn't planning to have it run out, as a matter of
I'm sure Laurence Olivier wasn't either.
I don't know, but I've got a long way to go for that, you know.
When it does run out, will you go back and do Superman 4?
Never say never again. Yes. Sean Connery found that out, didn't he?
Yeah.
So you can't make promises. The problem is that you can do James Bond, well, you send him to the health farm and play him 50, whatever. But Superman, there's something about the paunch and the tights and the red boots that wouldn't make it. I think the statute of limitations has run out on my playing Superman past about now.
You think the old body is falling apart?
I think maybe it is, yes. It's falling apart in that certain kind of macho muscle builder way, you know? Because I don't do anything heavier than lift a wine glass now, you know?
But did you have to work very hard at the pectorals?
Yeah, I was in the gym every night, 7 days a week for 2 hours. And just a guy named Dave Prowse, who's the Green Cross man.
Green Goddess.
Right. No, that's somebody else. I've seen her. She's looks a lot better than Dave Prowse.
Sometimes with Americans I can get away with things like that, but you're an Anglophile. You know what goes on here. So he taught you how to get your body.
Yeah,
were you a 7-stone
up,
weakling before that?
13.5-stone weakling. Yes. But he showed up on the first day and said, right, do these. And then he took another job and went off to Tunisia. And later on, when he took the credit for it, deserved, but nevertheless, I had to go to the gym and do all the work. And it was something that I find really grotesque. I think a lot of sweaty guys staring at themselves in the mirror and is like really disgusting. So I won't have any of that. I mean,
the old pumping iron. You didn't have pump the iron?
No. I sail a boat and ski down a hill and fly a glider, and I flew my plane across the ocean one time. I lost more weight flying my plane alone, meaning solo. Every time I say I flew my plane alone, they always say, who went with you? I said, no, alone, across the Atlantic. Mind you, this wasn't Lindbergh, but the sheer terror factor on a couple legs of that trip, I lost more weight doing that than I ever did in the gym. I was on a leg across from Iceland, aiming for Glasgow via the Outer Hebrides. Everything was going well, except I suddenly realized that 3.5 hours out of a 5-hour trip and the Outer Hebrides were not appearing anywhere near where they were supposed to. And while I could hear Scottish control, they couldn't hear me. And I suddenly thought, I wonder, well, Europe's a big place. Let's get out the map. Let's see where we might be here. Anywhere on the board to win, right? So I took a look and I said, well, maybe I went to Ireland. I don't know. Yeah, maybe I'm in Ireland. So I call up Irish control, and sure enough, I'm 50 miles west of Shannon. I said, well, you know, the accent's a little different, but, you know, what the heck, I'll give it a try. So I went in and landed at Shannon and thought no more about it. However, the press was waiting in Glasgow. And they'd had the TV crews out, and they had the magazines and the papers and the on-the-spot to catch Superman flying across the Atlantic, landing in Glasgow. And when I missed and ended up in Ireland, they had a field day. They took me...
Would you call yourself an Anglophile? I mean, you've got a house there. You live with an English girl. You've got two American English children.
Yes, they're more English than American. It's much more sort of mommy daddy than mom dad. But Matthew's accent, he's 4, is starting to waver a little bit back and forth. I'm not supposed to say that I have a house here, you see, because
For tax reasons.
For tax reasons,
Yes, of
right.
course.
So I'm not really here. In fact, I have a corporation in the Lesser Antilles. I don't even know where those are. You don't even know where the Greater Antilles are. But I have a company out in the ozone someplace that owns my house, et cetera, et cetera.
I see.
So anyone from the IRS, that's your clue.
So, a tax dodger, eh?
I'm a tax dodger, yes.
But
Okay, I'll go quietly.
you do pursue the macho things, though, the flying and all that stuff, even if the old muscles are beginning to collapse a bit.
I didn't know that. I don't know. Maybe flying's macho. I've never thought of it as such because macho to me is a deliberate sort of flaunting of masculinity as a kind of way to keep women separate. And I think that one of the things that's nice about flying, particularly flying antique planes that I do and gliders and stuff, is it brings people together. Flying is about families. It's about boyfriends and girlfriends. It's about taking your grandmother up. It's not it's not that old flyboy from the war kind of thing anymore.
Would you like to see yourself in the leather thing with the glasses?
I just did a movie, as a matter of fact, called The Aviator, in which I fly a 1926 Stearman. I think it's the first time that an actor's done his own flying. They used to let Steve McQueen drive his own motorcycle.
So you do your own stunts?
But yeah, I did everything except the part where it says it flies through the trees, the wings come off, and crashes in a heap. I did everything except that bit. I'll let someone else do that.
Yeah.
People do say that you're no fun anymore. You won't try these things.
No.
I'm a dead bore.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Christopher.
Okay.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.